Swami recorded on August 29, 1981 in New Radakund, Sweden.
Jai Om Vishnu Pada Pamin Subrati Kitaya Srivati Sisiman Sriyani Go Swami Divine Basis Bhakti Vanta Samaha Shila Prabhupada Kije Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Kije Namacharya Shila Haridas Thakur Kije Prem Sukho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Munchana Sudeti Radha Shivasadi Go Bhakti Mani Kije Shri Radha Krishna Go Govinath Shyam Kanda Radha Kanivirani Kije Mathura Dham Kije Navadip Dham Kije Vrinsapati Dham Kije Rignath Swami Kije Vrindavan Dham Kije Bhakti Devi Kije Tosi Maharani Kije Ko Premanandi Hare Bo Samavera Bhakti Vindi Kije All glory to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to some of the devotees. All glories to Sri Guru Ganga. All glories to join grace to look all paths. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita, it is chapter 10, text 9. Mat Chita Mat Chita Prana Bodhayantak Parasparam Katayantash Cha Mam Nityam Krishanti Cha Ramanti Cha Machita Madgita Prana Machita Madgita Prana Bodhayantak Parasparam Bodhayantak Parasparam Katayantasya Mam Nityam Katayantasya Mam Nityam Krishanti Cha Ramanti Cha Krishanti Cha Ramanti Cha Machita Madgata Prana Bodhayantak Parasparam Katayantasya Mam Nityam Krishanti Cha Ramanti Cha Machita, mind fully engaged in me. Matkata Prana, lives devoted to the service of Krishna. Bodhayantak, preaching. Parasparam, among themselves. Katayantak, talking also. Mam, about me. Nityam, perpetually. Krishanti, are pleased. Cha, also. Ramanti, enjoy transcendental bliss. Cha, also. Translation. These thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss, enlightening one another and conversing about me. Purport. Pure devotees, whose characteristics are mentioned herein, engage themselves fully in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Their minds cannot be diverted from the lotus feet of Krishna. Their talks are solely on the subject matters of transcendental subjects. The symptoms of the pure devotees are described in this verse specifically. Devotees of the Supreme Lord are 24 hours daily engaged in glorifying the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Their hearts and souls are constantly submerged in Krishna, and they take pleasure in discussing him with other devotees. In the preliminary stage of devotional service, they relish the transcendental pleasure from the service itself, and in the mature stage, they are actually situated in love of God. Once situated in that transcendental position, they can relish the highest perfection which is exhibited by the Lord in his abode. Lord Chaitanya likens transcendental devotional service to the sowing of a seed in the heart of the living entity. There are innumerable living entities traveling throughout the different planets of the universe, and out of them there are a few who are fortunate enough to meet a pure devotee and get the chance to understand devotional service. This devotional service is just like a seed, and if it is sown in the heart of a living entity, and if he goes on hearing and chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, that seed fructifies just as a seed of a tree fructifies with regular watering. The spiritual plant of devotional service gradually grows and grows until it penetrates the covering of the material universe and enters into the Brahmajyoti effulgence in the spiritual sky. In the spiritual sky also that plant grows more and more until it reaches the highest planet, which is called Goloka Vrindavan, the supreme planet of Krishna. Ultimately, the plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and rests there. Gradually, as the plant grows fruits and flowers, that plant of devotional service also produces fruits, and the watering process in the form of chanting and hearing goes on. This plant of devotional service is fully described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It is explained there that when the complete plant takes shelter under the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, one becomes fully absorbed in love of God. Then he cannot live even for a moment without being in contact with the Supreme Lord, just as a fish cannot live without water. Road 2. In such a state, the devotee actually attains the transcendental qualities in contact with the Supreme Lord. The Srimad Bhagavatam is also full of such narration about the relationship between the Supreme Lord and his devotees. Therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is very dear to the devotees. In this narration, there is nothing about material activity, sense gratification, or liberation. Srimad Bhagavatam is the only narration in which the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord and his devotees is fully described. Thus, the realized souls in Krishna consciousness take continual pleasure in hearing such transcendental literature, just as a young boy and girl take pleasure in association. Matchita matkita prana bodhayanta purasparam katayantas chamam nityam jishanti charamanti cha. The thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me, their lives are surrendered to me, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss enlightening one another and conversing about me. So, this is a very famous verse of Bhagavad Gita, which describes the characteristics of a pure devotee of Krishna. Pure devotees of the Lord fall into different categories. Some are of the lower category, the Prakrita Bhakta, materialistic devotees. Some are of the middle category, the preachers. And some are of the highest category. Now, those who are of the Paramahamsa class of men, they always are thinking of Krishna. Much chitta. Chaita refers to the consciousness. Chaita. Chaita dharpanamarjanam. When the mirror of the heart is cleansed. This is the first verse of Lord Chaitanya's Shikshashtakam. Teachings, the only teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Chaita dharpanamarjanam bhava mahadava agni nivapanam shreya karava chandrika vitarinam vidyavadujim. This chaita, or consciousness, is contaminated. And therefore the chitta, or the thinking process, also becomes contaminated. But the pure devotees, they are not having a contaminated consciousness. Therefore, much chitta, their minds are always taking refuge in the lotus feet of the Lord. Their minds don't want to think of other things. Everybody's mind wants to think of so many things in this material world. But a pure devotee's mind doesn't want to think about anything else but Krishna. It's only happy when it thinks of Krishna. And therefore, it's like an example given by Prabhupada at the end, just like young boys and girls, they want to be together and they take great pleasure in their association. So similarly, a pure devotee always wants to think of Krishna and wants to be together with other devotees. And he takes great pleasure in that association. Madgita prana. Prana refers to life. And their whole life force is simply dedicated to serving Krishna. Because they have no other desire. They have no other thing which makes any sense to them in this world. This world is filled with so many things, so many activities. Some are of the mode of ignorance, some are of the mode of passion, and some are even of the mode of goodness. But a pure devotee is not interested in activities in the modes of nature. He doesn't care about the way in which this world is going on. People, they find this very amazing. How is it you don't care about all of these wonderful things here in the material world? But the reason is because the pure devotees of Krishna, their whole lives are surrendered to Krishna. Therefore, they only take pleasure in Krishna. So they're not interested in anything else. And therefore, bodhayantascha parasparam, they're always preaching about Krishna or talking about Krishna to others. Kathayantascha mam aticham, they're always talking Krishna katha. Krishna katha, topics of Krishna, is the most important kind of topic, because these topics are in and of themselves supremely pious activities. And if you just hear and chant about Krishna, Krishna being the well-wishing friend within everyone's heart, as the super soul, he's in everyone's heart, and Krishna is the real friend. Krishna is the actual friend. We may have so many friends in this world who call themselves friends, but their friendship is simply based on mutual sense gratification. As long as you please me, I'm your friend. As long as I please you, you're my friend. In this way, this constant material business is going on even in human relationships. But Krishna is the real friend, because he stays with us no matter what. And we're certainly, in the material sense, never giving any sense gratification to Krishna. We're in Maya. Everybody's in Maya, or illusion. Therefore, they don't even consider Krishna, what to speak of working to please Krishna. But still, Krishna stays with us throughout this material existence. And when we turn towards Krishna, then he becomes very happy. You know the example of the two birds in the tree? The tree is compared to the body. And there are many trees in a forest. And there are two birds. One is compared to the super soul, and one is compared to the individual soul. And just as the individual soul goes from body to body in various lifetimes, to various species of life, so this bird is flying from one tree to another. And wherever he flies, another bird is following him. That is the super soul, who is not engaging in activities in these trees. He just watches the other bird. The bird who is living within the tree, he's always eating the fruit. So the fruit is sometimes bitter, and the fruit is sometimes sweet. That is life. One famous poet said, life is like a bowl of cherries. Some are bitter, some are sweet. Some are sour, and some are sweet. Sometimes when you eat cherries, you think very nice, but then you hit the sour one. Ugh. Life is like that. The worst thing especially is when those who are enjoying very much, all of a sudden they get some suffering. Then it really, really feels bad, really hurts. It's like the living condition of a man who is a poor man, who is always suffering. He's not worried about it when it gets a little worse or whatever. For him, he's used to this. But you imagine these rich people who are enjoying all kinds of opulences, and then when something bad happens to them, they suffer so much from it. It hurts so much more. Just like those who are famous, when they become infamous, oh, how much it hurts. But for a man who's not famous to become infamous is actually some benefit to him. So, this idea of acting in this material world for one's sense gratification has completely pushed aside acting for the service of Krishna. And therefore the bird in the tree, he's just busy eating, sometimes going, bad luck, rotten fruit. And sometimes he's going, oh, very nice, see how I like it, I'm enjoying so much. But he's always dying, and thus he has to fly to another tree. When you die, it is like the bird flying to another tree. You don't die, the body dies, but the soul, he goes to another body, and the super soul goes. How kind is Krishna? Krishna is therefore the best wishing friend. He's the only friend, real friend, because he's always with us, always, under all and all circumstances, no matter what. So, Krishna, situated within the heart, when he hears that we are speaking about him, or we are trying to reach out for him, or we're chanting his name, or we're telling others about him, he immediately becomes a well-wishing friend. He sees, aha, he's reaching for me, immediately he reciprocates. Immediately, Krishna reciprocates. Others, they don't reciprocate unless they get something out of it. Unless they can get something out of it, they don't reciprocate. He's just any businessman. Unless he can see in you some money sticking out of your pocket, he won't talk to you. He's not interested in you. What does he care about you for? He sees so many people all day long, but he only wants the people who come with the money in their pocket. And then he's very interested, big smile, patting you on the back, speaking nice words. As soon as you say, oh, I don't have any money, oh, get out of here. Don't waste my time. This is the material nature. People are interested in their own benefit. Of course, in a sense, you might say it's natural, but this is not spiritual. And it's natural in the material sense, sure, but it is not spiritual. But Krishna is not like that. As soon as you turn to him, he's immediately reciprocating. In that sense that you turn to Krishna, as much as you turn to Krishna, immediately he's reciprocating in kind. Immediately he's reciprocating. He doesn't wait. It's not that you have to do some great formula, or you have to make some fancy sacrifice, or do a dance up and down, you'll attract Krishna. You just simply turn towards him. You simply turn your face towards Krishna. You simply just chant Hare Krishna mantra. Immediately Krishna is there. Immediately Krishna is reciprocating. That is a fact. And if again you turn away towards Krishna, then Krishna will also turn away slightly, but he will always drag you back. You can't avoid Krishna. As soon as you just start taking up devotional service is so powerful, immediately it starts attracting you towards Krishna, more and more, and more and more, and more and more. And the more you come towards Krishna, the more Krishna brings you towards him. The reciprocating process. It is not that we can go towards Krishna on our own. We have no such power. But we cannot try to approach Krishna on our own. But immediately Krishna is there, and then we're no longer on our own. So it's practically impossible. If as soon as I try, Krishna is there to help me, then what's the question of being alone? The only thing I can do individually is to try. That's all. I simply try to approach Krishna, and immediately Krishna is helping me approach him. And then more and more and more, he's luring us on. Come on, come on, come on. Krishna is very expert. He's the most attractive one. There's nobody more attractive than Krishna. Krishna can attract everybody. Everybody's attracted to Krishna. Of course, the demons, they are, of course, attracted to Krishna because they want to kill him. They're attracted to Krishna's opulences, Krishna's strength, Krishna's knowledge. They're attracted to everything about Krishna. But the only problem is that Krishna has it. That's the only problem. They like everything about Krishna except one thing. That he's got all these opulences and they don't. This is why they're demons, because they're envious. But they're also completely attracted to Krishna. They try to imitate Krishna in every way. Isn't imitation the highest form of flattery? If you imitate somebody, that means you think he's doing things great. That's why you want to do him that way too. So they're trying to imitate Krishna all the time. How? By being the enjoyers. They're trying to do things like Krishna, to enjoy in this material world, and they want to be the controllers. So they're just imitating Krishna. But that is flattery. They're actually proving the supremacy of the Supreme Lord by trying to imitate his position. You can't avoid it. Krishna is the Supreme no matter how you look at it. Even if you are a demon or you are a devotee or whatever, in between, Krishna is always the Supreme. He's the leader of all men. He's always the leader of all men. And everyone is following him. That's why Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Manusham Partha Sarvasya, all people are following my path in all respects. Although some may be aware of following it under scriptural injunctions, others may be totally ignorant of that. But everybody is following Krishna's path in all respects. Some are following it in the material sense, but they're doing it just to try to imitate Krishna's position. And some are doing it in the spiritual sense by following the instructions of Krishna how to go home back to God. So, when we are engaged in such transcendental discussions of Krishna or topics of Krishna, then tushanti cha ramanti cha. We first of all become fully satisfied, and second of all, we derive transcendental bliss. Excuse me, my voice is not. We derive great transcendental bliss. And that we can see practically. Nobody would be here if they didn't feel blissful in Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, why? Why come here, cut off all your nice, beautiful hairs, put on some cheap piece of cloth, everybody points his finger and laughs at you. Why would anyone come here? You have to be a madman. From the material point of view, the materialists think only a madman would come here. Now why all these madmen have come here? Because it's blissful. We like it. I mean, basically, when people say, what are you doing here? My first response is, because I like it. I think Krishna consciousness is nice. Wow. Because it is, first of all, giving me a transcendental bliss and satisfaction which I've never experienced anywhere else. Isn't that a fact? Isn't that why you're here? It should be anyway. When we are dancing and chanting in kirtan, and we know why we're here. You go and try and join the material world like that. You go to the movies, or you go to the ice cream parlor, or you go to a bar and get drunk, or you dance and shake yourself up and down, or whatever you do. You can't have such a nice time as when you come to the temple and you enjoy Krishna consciousness. That is a fact. Tushanti cha ramanti cha. Because you engage in Krishna's service and hearing about Krishna and chanting about Krishna, immediately it is blissful. And Krishna says it's one of the qualifications of a pure devotee. He's blissful. If somebody says he's a pure devotee but he's not blissful, then he's not a pure devotee. Because pure devotees are blissful by nature. Because as soon as they contact Krishna, the bliss of Krishna immediately is transferred to us. As soon as you contact Krishna, it's like if you have transcendental realization of the Lord, immediately all of the parts of the body become transcendentally enlivened. The senses become enlivened. The mind becomes enlivened. The hairs of the body stand on end. The throat becomes choked up. As soon as one contacts the Supreme Lord, like when the life force comes in contact with air, the hairs will stand up. If the life force comes in contact with earth, there will be devastation. If the life force comes in contact with water, there will be tears from the eyes. In this way, the life force contacts these different elements somehow, and these responses come from the body in ecstatic love. This is a part of the Ashtasattvika Bhava emotion which is described in the Nectar of Devotion. But bliss comes, ecstasy comes. It is not that we'll always be on the platform of the lower class persons forever. No. This grows, this develops gradually, more and more and more. It's like a tree growing, creeper of devotional service. It starts off as a little seed and begins to make a creeper going higher, 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 higher. And when it begins to grow fruits and flowers, you see, when the tree is mature, it begins to produce fruits or flowers. So when these fruits are on the tree or this creeper of devotion, and the fruit ripens, then you can really taste the nectar of this fruit of devotional service, ecstatic love of Godhead. And that is why we are developing our Krishna consciousness. Of course, some people are developing Krishna consciousness simply because they were suffering in the material world too much, and here they're not suffering anymore. But that's kind of a negative attitude. I was suffering there, and here I'm not suffering anymore. Oh, well, big deal. So what? You can also go to some welfare home and not suffer from having nothing to eat or no place to stay or whatever. But in Krishna consciousness, it takes you from the point of no suffering and brings you to the point of bliss. That is required. You've got to go to that point. So when gradually one comes from the point of bliss, it is not that one jumps up and down in kirtan and that's it. You see, there's nothing higher. No. Krishna conscious bliss never stops increasing. That is a fact. Every day it increases more and more and more and more, and there's no limit to it. None. And gradually, one develops higher levels of ecstasy. Until finally he is totally ecstatic every minute of the day. But then, you don't find those kind of people running around here. When one comes to such a platform of ecstasy, he generally retires completely from all material activities and shuts himself up, waiting simply for the end of the body, and then transfers himself to a place where Krishna is performing his pastimes in this manifested universes. One doesn't go directly back to the spiritual world if he's relating with Krishna. If he's relating with Vishnu, he will go directly back to the spiritual world. But if he's relating with Krishna, he will immediately go to a universe where Krishna is performing his pastimes. Krishna is always performing his pastimes somewhere in these material universes. Just like the sun is always somewhere at noon. Somewhere on this planet, the sun is always at noon. There's never a time when it's not at noon somewhere, because it's always changing, always moving. So similarly, Krishna is always performing his pastimes somewhere in this material world. So the living entity will immediately go to that place and take birth there amongst the lucky peoples of Vrindavan and associate with Krishna. This is a transcendental opportunity that only comes when one is qualified. And the qualification is he has to taste transcendental bliss. And it's not that the qualification means a lot of sweat. It means you have to be ecstatic. That's a very nice prerequisite. So when you are ecstatic, then you have the opportunity. You are qualified to become more ecstatic. And this comes by rendering pure personal service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now somebody may say this all sounds like a lot of love and peace, but it doesn't sound very logical. Well, I beg to differ. If the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Lord, then he must be supremely blissful as well, is it not? And if he is supremely blissful, and we come in contact with him, mustn't we also become blissful as we are his part and parcel? No. Just like if you're with somebody who's very, very happy, and is all the time laughing and telling jokes, you don't become happy too? You immediately also start laughing, and everybody is enjoying that relationship very much, isn't it? So if Krishna is ecstatic, do you really think you are such a stone that you will not also become ecstatic? Of course you will. Immediately. Therefore, anyone who comes in contact with Krishna becomes very ecstatic. That is the whole purpose of this verse. Tushanti cha, ramanti cha. Simply by engaging in Krishna's service, simply by speaking about Krishna, hearing about Krishna, doing everything for Krishna's service, immediately you become satisfied. Very pleased. Very pleased. No one can say that he is suffering in devotional service. No. By performing devotional service, there is no such thing as suffering. Of course, one may find because he's in Maya, he's suffering. Well, that's another thing. That you can't blame on Krishna. If you're in Maya and you're suffering, that's another thing. But as soon as you come to Krishna consciousness, there's bliss. Now, sometimes one may say, well, why is it I was Krishna conscious, but now I've fallen down off of that platform? Generally, it is because of one, due to material attachments, breaks the regulative principles, or one commits Vaishnava aparad, or somehow or another is not properly keeping himself in the fire of devotional service. He doesn't follow the process of sadhana bhakti or something like this. And therefore, gradually his devotional service becomes covered with weed. This very nice creeper of devotion, if there criticizing or whatever of pure devotees or even any devotee engaged in nice devotional service, or when one is improperly following the regulative principles of not chanting at 16 rounds a day, or breaking the principles, or not rising properly, or not bathing, or not whatever. In this way, one loses his devotional qualification. He loses the whole bliss of Krishna consciousness immediately. Try it one day. Sleep until 11 a.m. Don't try it. I'll tell you what will happen. So in this way, if we keep ourselves strictly following the principles which are given on the nectar of devotion, as Prabhupada used to say, you must read this nectar of devotion every day. Always he used to say that. He used to give nectar devotion classes in Vrindavan in 1972 in front of the Samadhi of Rupa Goswami and the Bhajan Kutir of the Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami and other Goswamis. They used to sit there under a tree. So we used to all go there and sit there under that tree, and Prabhupada would also sit there. And he'd give lectures on the nectar of devotion. He used to say all the time, I have written this nectar of devotion just to give you the opportunity to learn everything about devotional service. So you must read this every day. Every day. He told us that, to read it every day. You read a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Gradually, we begin to understand what is devotional service. Of course, he used to say also, you can ask questions about the first half of the book, but the second half of the book, don't ask questions about. Because it is about the transcendental activities and pastimes of the Supreme Lord. So, to begin to enter into discussions on these subject matters, one must have realized the contents of the first half of the book. One can read, but to start to discuss, one should wait. Because we are very much materially contaminated in this world. And it takes a long time to get freed from such contamination. I mean, even Sukadeva Goswami, who's more qualified than he, didn't even mention the word Radha in the Srimad Bhagavatam. He did not even mention. He thought himself too fallen. Can you imagine that? Sukadeva Goswami, the greatest yogi, Mahajan, Mahabhagavata of the highest order, such a great yogi, such a great high devotee, Mahabhagavata of the Lord, that even though Vyasadeva was there, Narada Muni was there, all the great sages and saintly persons of the time were there, none of them dared speak to Maharaj Parikshit. They were waiting for Sukadeva to come. And Sukadeva himself refused to mention the name Radha, because he thought himself too fallen. And so therefore, what right do we have to enter into the transcendental loving pastimes of Krishna artificially? We should not artificially try to enter into that realm. No. Rather, we should be patiently awaiting the day when we will be brought to that realm by the hand. That will come, that the spiritual master will take us by the hand and bring us to Vrindavan and say, you are so and so, and your service is such and such for Krishna. Now here, take this Shama and Santi. This is the way it is. When one is properly qualified, he is brought to Krishna. Not that he should say, okay, Krishna, you come to me. I've done so much for you, Krishna, now you appear before me. Even the materialists have done nothing for Krishna. They say, can you show me God? Nothing whatsoever is their qualification. They have no qualification. They've never done anything for Krishna. In fact, they've done things which will harm Krishna or try to harm Krishna. You can't harm Krishna, but they try to harm Krishna. Or they try to destroy his supremacy. Or they downright just try to reject his existence. But then they will challenge, can you show me God? But what is the qualification to see? You must have a qualification. And that qualification is as Premanjana Purita mentioned. The salve of love coating the eye. That is the qualification. When one has actually got love of Krishna. When one loves Krishna, he can see Krishna. One doesn't love Krishna, he'll never see Krishna. Krishna is not so cheap that you can have experience of him just like that, without any qualification. He is not so cheap. Krishna will only manifest himself to those who he wants to, when he wants to, as he likes. And Prahlad Maharaj says you may have all the 12 qualities of the Brahmana. There are so many qualities. Satyam, Samodamo, Satyam, Tapat, what is it? Tapat, Shanti, Ajivam, Evacha, Saucham, Jnanam. vijnanam, asrityam, different qualities, tikshava, all these qualities are there. That is, control of the mind, control of the senses, tolerance, simplicity, mercy, truthfulness, cleanliness, devotion, realized knowledge, philosophical knowledge. Now many qualities. There are 12 in number specifically, which have to deal with the Brahmana. And one may have all these 12 qualities. He may be a highly developed human being, and very knowledgeable, and very realized as well. But if Krishna hasn't decided to bestow his causeless mercy on him, he will never have the vision of Krishna. Not until Krishna himself says, here I am, will we be able to see Krishna. So therefore, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say, don't try and see Krishna. That is not possible. But act in such a way that Krishna will want to see you. It's like if you do something very wonderful, the president will say, come on, I want to give you a medal. Yeah, in a country, if you do something really fantastic, let's say you're a great soldier or a great astronaut or a great something or other, public servant, the president will say, come on, I'll give you a medal now. Similarly, when we act in such a way as to attract the attention of Krishna, Krishna will say, come here, come to me, or here I am. Therefore, devotee must act, he must think of acting in such a way as to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is real devotion. Real devotion means to act to please Krishna. Artificial devotion means acting, but without really the understanding of pleasing Krishna. So we are trying to develop real devotees. We don't want artificial devotees who are simply acting, imitating, or who are simply looking for fame, profit, and distinction in the guise of a devotee because they couldn't find it in the material world. They're useless at times. We're looking for real devotees who want to develop their pure love of the Supreme Lord and really be satisfied because of that. That is the most satisfying thing in this Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada used to say, I'll consider my life successful if I create one pure devotee of Krishna. I will consider my life successful. And that pure devotee will drag me back to God. Such humility is there. So, we also would like to have at least one pure devotee. Of course, Prabhupada, he created so many nice devotees. But we wish to have many pure devotees. Prabhupada used to say, there may be many stars in the sky, but there's only one moon. So, try and become at least a star in the sky. Don't be a rock on the ground. At least be a star in the sky. And if one of you is especially lucky, become a moon. And if there are many moons, that is also very nice, because the night will have a very pleasing light to it. If there are many moons, there will be no more darkness of night. No more. Even one moon can do very nicely to dispel that darkness. Can you imagine many? Are there any questions? Yes, momentary realization. And when you have more and more of those momentary realizations, they become full realizations. Just like when you're developing love of Krishna, we're on this subject because the verse is like that. You may have a moment when you love Krishna, or 3 moments when you love Krishna, or a minute, or 10 minutes, and then it goes away. And then again there's some love for Krishna, and again it goes away. So this is the beginning stage, this flickering. But the more those moments increase, and the time increases, then gradually the spaces, when you forget Krishna, reduce, until finally it becomes steady. So similarly, you may have some flash of realization that sense gratification is not very good, and that may go away. But when you are steady, that is all the time there. And all the time that replaced with love of Krishna. Just like when you're thinking of Krishna, then you're not thinking of Maya. When you're thinking of Maya, you're thinking of Krishna. So in this way, there are spaces in both of these parts. And when finally everything is transferred to loving Krishna, then there's no more space for Maya. Oh, that means we shouldn't engage in that? Then what is the solution? Huh? Keep on trying. If at first you don't succeed, try again. You know that saying? So, if at first, of course nobody succeeds immediately in becoming Krishna conscious. But if you don't succeed immediately, like you walk in the door, put on a dhoti, stick a bead bag around your neck, and come into the temple, alright, here I am! So, where's the tears in my eyes and the hairs standing up in my... Why haven't I collapsed yet in love of Godhead? I got my bead bag, I got my dhoti. What's going on? There must be something wrong. Oh, you come in and you try, and there are so many problems, but gradually they go away. Gradually, one becomes very nice devotee. No, not that you just go out and start digging ditches very heavy for Krishna and then you forget all about Maya. You have to engage your mind too. When your mind is also engaged in your devotional service, you're sure, then Maya is thrown right out. But if your body is busy digging a ditch and your mind is somewhere falling in the ditch, then it doesn't work. You see? Your mind also has to be engaged somehow. And when you're doing DBT work, how can your mind not be engaged? And if your mind's not engaged, then you do everything all wrong. Well, when Prahlad Maharaj is there and Lord Nrsingadev is there, nobody's there. And if Lakshmi is there and Nrsingadev is there, then Prahlad Maharaj is not there. Generally, Lakshmi and Nrsinga, or Prahlad Nrsinga deity is there. But they're not supposed to be mixed. Although sometimes they do it. That's not, horrifying, but it is not scripture. Because when Lord Nrsingadev was there, manifesting his bhava, nobody came near him. Nobody. He was roaring and roaring. Everybody was just shaking like a leaf. Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, everybody, they were hidden behind a pillar, just shaking. I said, oh, who's going to go out there and offer him prayers? Not me. Then they said, oh, Prahlad, he came because of you. You go out there. Here, give him this garland. Go ahead. Prahlad Maharaj, being simple 5-year-old boy, he didn't think Lord Nrsingadev was so ferocious. He thought, here's my Lord. He went right out. Nrsingadev put him right on his lap. But very nice boy. But even Lakshmi, she said, I never saw him like that before. That's a fact. But I've never seen him like that before. I won't go out there. I'll wait till he calms down. Because he only associates with Lord Nrsinga when he's in a good mood. Yeah, it's a fact. I'm not even saying it that way to make it funny. That is the way it is. Well, whenever you're praying to Krishna, or whenever you're coming in contact with Krishna, deity form or holy name, yes, you will have experiences with Krishna, of course. There must be personal relationships. There must be. Krishna is a person. You're a person. If you approach him, there'll be personal relationships. But Krishna is standing before you, walking up to you, taking your hand. This is very special. That experience you have in life. And you think you would still be in Maya if Krishna did that? When Krishna comes up to you and says something to you, you no longer question. There's no question of Maya anymore. Yes? No? Often? We were discussing this the other day. Maybe you weren't here. Lakshmi, she offers protection. This means with the lotus flower in one hand and a hand like this means offering protection. This is the way. And then Radharani, she's holding chamara and Tulsi leaves flower garland and Tulsi leaves. Then to serve Krishna. Or other flowers to offer to Krishna. And in Vrindavan, there's a special form of Radha Krishna dancing. Radharani takes this dancing. Krishna's famous. That form of Radharani and Krishna you cannot worship outside of Vrindavan. Only in Vrindavan, and only if you are in spontaneous love of Godhead. And that worship is done very simply, with leaves and branches, and all forests and natural things. Very, very simple. But we are worshipping Krishna very opulently. Of course, not opulently enough, but little bit. Well, it may take one lifetime. It may take a half of lifetime. It may take 20 lifetimes. No formula. Then maybe it'll take 2 lifetimes. But that's not much. You consider in relationship to the 8,400,000 different forms we've been rotating through. Not only once even. 2 lifetimes, 10 lifetimes, what's that? Nothing. But, Prabhupada used to say all the time, he used to say, you just chant your 16 rounds a day, follow the 4 regulative principles, and I promise I will drag you back to Godhead. He said that many times, many letters, a long time ago. You just chant the 16 rounds a day and follow the 4 regulative principles for the rest of your days, and I promise I will drag you back to Godhead. Drag means even if you don't want to go. Drag. By the hair. Alright, that's a nice note to end with. Hare Krishna.